All righty, good stuff. We are live. There are people in the chat. So hello, everybody. Hi, Ilias and Jiri and Ankur. Forgive me if I butchered those names. It's because I'm stupid. And if I knew better, I would do better. I'm sorry. But it's good to see you all. Hello, everybody. Hello. Hi. Yeah, I got Rob here. Are you there, buddy?
Yeah, I'm here. How's it going, Josh?
Whoa. I think you said something, and then like a few seconds later, your face moved. So it's a bit of a,
It's kind of glitchy, huh? Maybe
Yeah,
it's just how I. That's actually just how I move.
You're like Drax from Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah.
If I move so slowly, I am. Oh, look at this! All these people are here to see you, man. They're like, it's cool. Oh, good. Hi everybody. Hi Ibrahim. Hi Ahmed. Hi Obed. Hi Ankur. Hi. Yeah, it's good stuff. Look at that. So we got Rob. Can I say your last name? It's already in the title, so it's probably fine.
Oh yeah. Rob Winch.
Rob Winch.
I don't know how to edit that. The screen is gone now, but yeah.
Can I do it? Am I allowed to? No. You know what? If I have learned anything, that you shouldn't change things. Edit name
that are working. Yeah. Don't change it while we're live.
I'm gonna. Oh God! Please don't say fault. Oh, it's fine. You're okay.
I'm on Linux after all. I could. I might have to recompile my kernel if you
No
make changes.
So I'm. You're not actually in the room with me, so I'm gonna just do Josh. There we go. I'm fixing. Look at that. I'm learning stuff. I'm Ampu. Hi, buddy. Hi, everybody. Good stuff. So okay. You're probably most notorious for being the lead of Spring Security, and you are the rarest of Pokemons to have on a live stream. I got you on the show last Spring 1, which was eons ago. I don't even remember. It was 1,000,005 microseconds ago. I don't know.
It's
a
definitely been a minute.
Yeah, more than a minute, less than a billion years, and but it was last year. That's important, but it just feels like a long time ago. So you're the lead of Spring Security. People will know about that, and if you're expecting security, then this isn't exactly the right webinar for you or the right live stream, because we're going to talk about something completely different, but also super cool and useful in the context of security, as in many other contexts. It's called. You're calling it Spring Boot Testjars? Is that the idea?
Well, yeah, it's called Spring Boot Testjars, but the name is subject to change.
Yeah.
But the kind of the one-liner for this is Spring Boot Testjars is like Spring Boot plus test container support, but for Spring Boot applications directly without the need for a Docker container.
So for the good many sort of, obviously this is not going to replace test containers, right? This is a
no, certainly not. Certainly not.
Jar to jar integration, right?
Yeah, this is to remove the extra layers of complexity with Docker, for if you want to, say you have like a application that calls a microservice called messages, and then you want to be able to automatically start that up at development and maybe integration testing time. Just like you can do a test container support, you can spin up a container, a Docker container, and run all your integration or do your development work against that container. Now you can do the same thing with a Spring Boot application directly, rather than having to create a Docker container middle ground, or a middle layer, extra layers of abstraction, basically.
So if I make a change, like let's say hypothetically here, again, just might be a little far afield here, but let's say I'm using the Spring authorization server, and I have a Spring Boot app that uses the authorization server, which is itself just an auto configuration away from a service. Like I can just add it to this class path and hit start, and I get a server. Let's say I'm using that. I don't have to now package that up as a Docker file, deploy it to a container registry, and then use test containers to pull it back down to use as a client or as a dependency in my main Spring Boot app, right? I can just use.
Yeah, you can just use the jar directly.
Nice. Oh, okay.
And then the other little bit of magic in there, which is similar to the test containers, is it will force it to start on an available port instead of on like the standard 8080 or whatever. And then it can map that port into your environment so that you can access it from your standard application and update your environment. So in a Spring Boot authorization server, when it starts it up, it'll start it on a random port, and then there's actually an annotation that makes it very easy to map it to kind of the standard Spring Boot authorization server endpoint, the issuer endpoint. And then once you've done that, then the boot application actually knows that that it's going to be at where to look for it the same way that it normally does, but it now has an authorization server started up for you.
So it's kind of like doing a user space NAT, like network address translation for the port mapping and all that stuff, right? Like,
well, no, it actually just knows the port, just like the test container support informs the boot environment what the ports are on the test container that are being exposed. It just updates the boot environment to have the port available. It's actually built on top of some of the same abstractions that test container support in boot uses. It's just a little more generic in the sense that you don't need test containers to do it.
Oh, I see. Okay. So in the Spring Boot, in Spring Framework, Spring Boot 3.1, which came out in March or April of last year, we added support. We're going to see code. Yes, absolutely. Great question, Ibrahim, because we need code because it won't make sense otherwise. In March of last year, April last year, we released Spring Boot 3.1, and we broke apart the link between the property files that people put their properties and configuration in, which then gets dumped into the environment, and then the thing that produces an actual foo, like a data source or connection factor or whatever. And we introduced a little thing in the middle called the connection details. And that connection details, it can now get its information. It can be informed by either Docker or property files, right? And then that then gets used to create the actual data source. So you'll have like a foo connection details, which then, there might be properties foo connection details and a Docker foo connection details, and then that informs the foo factory, which in turn is a bean that gets configured in the autoconfig. Are you using details?
Well, yeah, that's a good question. So there's also another way to work with that, and that's by interacting directly with the environment for things that don't already have a connection details.
Right.
And so it actually just updates the environment directly.
Oh, and then that goes, which then allows it to go into the path where you have property files.
Yep. Yeah. So basically, all it does is it updates the environment, and then it looks like you actually configured it using like a YAML or a properties file, except it just overrides that. It overrides that value.
I see. Okay. Very, very cool. And so why would you want to? Somebody asked a question. Is it similar to Spring Cloud Contract, which you can run a Spring Boot app as a sidecar to main app? Spring Cloud Contract is for testing. This isn't necessarily just for testing, is it? I mean,
no. This is. I would say, Spring Cloud Contract, as far as I'm aware, is kind of where you kind of figure out how each of the apps need to behave, and you produce contracts, and then you code against that as kind of like in isolation. This is more like an integration thing. So at development time, if you want to actually interact with the same endpoint that you're doing in production, or at testing time, you want to do like integration testing, you can start up the actual application and interact with it directly.
Right. Okay.
So it's a fancy way. It's an easy way to automatically start your dependent applications. No different than like if you needed like a database to connect to your for your app to connect to, but this is specialized for Spring Boot applications, so that you don't need the Docker container. And eventually we'll be able to do some fancy stuff, so that like if you import both of the projects into your IDE, we could say, oh, instead of looking at a jar, let's look at our actual IDE endpoints and get our class paths from there. And then when you make changes into one app, it uses your standard boot dev tools And then both apps kind of like basically the apps that need to may restart the way that DevTools tends to do. But you basically get live coding experience starting up with, you start up one app, all your dependencies start up. And if it's in your IDE, you can make changes to any of those and they'll automatically get picked up just as you normally would with DevTools. So that's a little ways down the line, but that's kind of where I see this heading for people that might need more than one app within their IDE. But a big driver for me is to make it easy for people to use authorization server. But it'll work for any boot application though.
Yeah, sure. Of which there are, a bazillion and 5, so that's a really useful thing out of the box to have.
Actually, I created one more today, so you have to update it to bazillion and 6.
Oh, my counter is gonna overflow. No, that's so cool. I mean, but okay. So speaking of DevTools, what happens? I don't want to. Let's say I've got a thing like the Spring Authorization Server, which, quick though it is off the line, I don't want to have to restart every single time I restart my Spring Boot app. Can I keep it? Is there like a restart scope or something like that? How do I tell it to just stay running?
So the way that I'd look at Spring Boot Testjars is all it is like a wrapper around Commons exec. So it basically uses Commons exec, and it runs that way. It can run the other boot application in a separate process, and it gives you class path isolation and all that stuff. And so anything you can do with the process, you can do with Spring Boot Testjars. I mean, all it is creating a new process, and then it uses a little bit of magic, if you will, to create the command line and start it up, and then figure out what the port is that it started up on, and force it into a random port, and then map it into the environment.
So if I restart if I use DevTools, or if I just restart the same Spring Boot app that's using Testjars, is there some smarts in there to say, okay, it's already running, don't restart it? Like I've already run this.
Yeah,
process?
I think all that stuff in terms of like the DevTools experience needs to like go further. We need to figure out exactly how that works. This is still very much in its infancy. Okay. It's basically been an idea that I've had since before the test container support. Ever since, actually, I've thought of this idea ever since I started up, ran Spring Boot integration tests. I was like, this is amazing. How do I start a dependency if I need to run a dependency? Like, I want to run a dependency for my integration tests. How can I do that? And so it's kind of been in the back of my mind ever since I've ran Spring Boot integration tests. And I've talked to a few people about it and tried to persuade other people to do it. And then at Spring 1, actually, I put together a quick demo of how easy it could be, and then decided to spend like a week or two putting this together. So there's not really a lot of code there. It's mostly just using Commons exec and the stuff that Spring Boot provides. And there are a little bit of adaptations here and there to get things to work, but there's not a lot to this project at this point.
This is that's what I love. I love that you're building on atoms that are there's the fundamental particles of all that stuff are in Spring itself. You're just pulling them together in a new way, creating something even cooler. Awesome. Okay, I think the abstract of it is clear. Any questions on that before we dive into code chat? Like, just to make sure we're on the same page. Okay, let's do this. Do you want to share your screen and walk us through?
Yeah, we can do that. Yeah, let's see let's see, share screen. Sorry, it's giving me a warning about sharing screens. Let's see. Okay, share screen. Entire screen. Okay, and I want to do that one. Okay, can you see my screen?
Now they can. You are live. Your screen is visible to the internet. So if you have like, secrets or something like that, don't close them.
All right. Well, yeah, we have Spring Boot Testjars. So if you want to check it out, it's actually, here's the URL, Spring Boot, or it's in Spring Projects Experimental Spring Boot Testjars.
So that means
And
that the name of the Maven coordinates might very well change dramatically. You might opt the word experimental, and the name test jars might change as well. So that's all.
yeah. All of it's experimental, hence being in Spring Projects Experimental.
Right. Okay.
So yeah, I won't go through this because the README is not as fun as looking at actual code. So we'll go ahead and just look at some actual code.
What was
And
that
so,
OAuth2 URI annotation I just saw?
oh yeah. So that's a good question. Let's close all tabs. So in this project, there's actually a couple samples, and as someone who likes to do security related stuff, my samples are security related, but there's nothing intrinsic about this project that requires you to do an authorization server. It just happens to be one of my interests, and so that's what I'm spinning up. It can be any Spring Boot application.
Right.
So the first thing that you really need to do is you need to add the Spring Boot Testjars dependency. And the coordinates for this are actually going to be, unfortunately, I don't have this. It's not super easy to see in this setup, but you'll need to have a group ID that matches this, and
For
then for
okay.
this for the dependency. So I've added the dependency here, but I'm using Gradle project, so it'll look like your let's copy the coordinates. So this is what it should look like. We'll do this. Let me get up. So let's see, and let's see preferences. We should be able to tab stops, fonts and colors. Okay. Make that a little bigger. Okay.
Whoa.
So that's your group ID. That might be a little too big based upon Josh's whoa. Let's see if we can get his whoa to be a little less dramatic.
Whoa.
Let's see.
That's fine.
All right, there we go. So that's the group ID. And then obviously we need to get the actual project. So the project itself is called, that actually aligns with our sample here. So we have Spring Boot Testjars. And then our version right now, we only have, this is hot off the press, so we only have a snapshot version, and that's in your standard. That's in our standard Spring Boot or our standard Spring snapshot repository right now. We do plan on a 0.0.1 release here in the next week or so, so that'll be coming to fruition then. But for now, that's where you get it.
Oh.
And once you've added that, the other thing that you'll want is, if you haven't played with Spring or not Spring, Gradle capabilities or features, you can copy this. Or I should have probably just showed the README for this part, because that part is actually in the README. So if you want to add if you want to add like the feature variant for downloading it as a Maven dependency, then you need to copy this little snippet. And if you're using Maven, then you can copy this snippet. So the Maven classifier is the key bit there. It publishes it as a artifact with a classifier, and that just basically brings in the additional dependencies required to download it as a download as Maven. And we'll get into that in just a minute, but you probably just want to copy paste that if you're using Maven dependencies. Okay. And then that's all you need to do for your build. The next thing that you'll want is you go into here, and just like you do in a Spring Boot application where you want to have development time dependencies for test containers, Spring recommends you use this test and then the name of your application main method. So I'm sure you're familiar with that convention, Josh. And then
Yeah.
typically you'd have in here like your test containers set up so that you can run a main method in here, and that starts up your test containers. And then you have this little extra bit here where it says from OAuth to login main with test OAuth to login main. So that's adding the test dependencies to this one. But if you run your regular main, then it doesn't start up. And then the only other bit that we need is we have this new annotation called enable dynamic property. And this dynamic property is basically adding the support to map things into our environment from other existing beans. And we'll get into that in a minute. The next bit is we just declare a bean.
Yeah.
So the bean that we want to declare is commons exec web server factory bean. And all this is doing is it's creating a Spring Boot server using commons exec. And what we're doing is we're actually starting with, we just say add the auth to authorization server to my class path. And we could do that because this helper method, Spring Boot starter, is creating a coordinate of a Spring Boot dependency with the Spring Boot starter. So all this is an easy way to create a Spring Boot starter class path entry. Or you could just create Maven class path entry, and then it uses the existing boot version. Does that make sense, Josh?
Yeah, but so what if I wanted to do just like my own completely improperly named, non-consistently named dependency of, group artifact version 7.42? Like, how do I add the fully qualified thing? Yes. Okay. That's awesome.
But right now it has to be in Maven Central. I haven't added support yet for extra, like if it to do Maven via external repositories. There is a feature request for that I created myself. But you can also, you don't actually need to do it from like Maven coordinates. You can, I think this app is slowing down my browser. So you could just specify. Why is it so slow? Okay, here you go. So you could just specify a file too. So if you download the jar, you could just say, this is my Spring Boot application location.
Or even better, if I build the jar.
Yeah, you could build it and then specify where it is, or you could download it and place it on there. Doesn't matter how you, like if you put it on there, you could specify a file location. I'll probably be adding like the ability to do it via a URL. So like you could just say HTTPS, my Maven repository coordinates, like basically the full path to it, and it could download it, or it could just be on a share. It doesn't really matter. But basically, it just needs access to that jar. But for our purposes, we don't actually even need an existing application. We're just going to say OAuth to authorization server. And because there's no main method with boot that boot provides, if we specify this, it creates a no op boot main method for it. So it basically does what everyone sees that's generated when you use start.spring.io. It basically uses something like this on the class path. But this is just a shortcut to add something to the class path that has a main method in it to start it up. And then this will be basically if you created a boot application with the starter and one of the standard main methods, that's what this ends up being. But it also has a few conventions. So our bean name is authorization server. So if you look at my resources, it uses testjars, the bean name, authorization server, and a YAML file. And so in here, it's going to actually pick up this YAML file and load that. So I have like, oh, I shouldn't put my passwords on the internet, Josh. You're going to have to scrub this for later. That's my favorite password. So yeah, password of password, and then we have the client ID, and then we have a secret, and then basically the rest of our configuration. So this is basically the configuration that's going to be used by that application. And so now, if I start up this application, it'll start up this Spring Boot application, and then it adds it to the environment. And how does it add it to the environment? How does it know? I'm so glad you asked that, Josh. Thank you for asking that. It uses this custom annotation that is provided by Spring Boot Testjars, but more importantly, this is like a meta annotation. So if you, it boils down to this dynamic property annotation, and it just gives you a name and a value, and the value can be a spell expression. So here you can see this is a little more complicated, but let's go back to here to make it a little simpler. So let's start with something simple. So I can't scroll this without it like freezing up for some reason. My browser is like really angry, and I think it's because of this live stream.
It's not good.
Yeah, okay, hold on. Here we go, slowly. Okay, here it is, dynamic property.
Okay.
So this is kind of the basics of it. So this is no longer an authorization server, but it's still the Commons exec web server factory bean, and we're pointing to that messages application example. And what it does is it uses this dynamic property. And what does it do? It adds a property named messages.url with the value of http://localhost:/, and then it uses plus port. This is a spell expression. I'm sure you're familiar with spell, Josh, but for our users, it's a Spring expression language. And then this is just a string plus a property that's a root on our root object. And our root object actually happens to be the bean that we're returning. So Commons exec web server factory bean has a method called getPort that tells me what that port is. And so I can use this dynamic property thing to add anything to my environment, but I just happen to always be using Commons exec web server factory bean. If you have your own objects that you need to add to your environment, you can use that using this dynamic property. So if you had Josh's cool service and you wanted to update the environment based upon that bean, this would be an easy way to do it.
Wow.
And as with Spring's many places in Spring, we support composed, or depending on which way you want to look at it, you can as meta annotations. So we provide this simplified OAuth 2 client provider issuer URI annotation, and that, so you don't have to remember spring.security.oauth.client.provider, and then you see provider name is like a variable issuer URI, because that provider name can change, but the default value of it is right here, provider name Spring. And so basically what this ends up doing, if you look at my resources, it's basically filling in this value for me. I have it commented out here, but that annotation basically says spring.security.oauth2.client.provider.spring issuer URI equals. So it's just filling that out.
So you've got that custom annotation to make it easier for people to expose type safe configuration channels for their own custom test jars. But in the worst case, you could just publish a jar and then add a scoped resources test jar /jar name / property file, right? And that would do the same thing. Is that what I'm saying?
Yeah, you could. Yeah. The main reason why you want to do this is because you need a way to get that port, because this has got to start on you want it started on an available port, right?
Yeah.
And so when you start up with Commons exec web server factory bean, it forces it to be a available port instead of the port that is like configured with the application. We force it using a command line argument to be server.port = 0. And then it writes to a file when it starts up, it writes to a file what that port is, and then we use that file, we read that file to give the port value on the get port method of this.
But when you, what I'm saying is, how would I get that port without having a custom annotation?
Well, you could say Commons exec web server factory bean.get port. I mean, this. Remember, well, actually, I guess it's get object. So that's where, I mean, it's since it's a factory bean, the get object is actually implicitly called because that's the bean that's exposed, and then get port. So that's where that, when you look at this method, the SPEL expression, the SPEL expression is actually evaluated. That port is actually evaluated against the whatever bean this is. So if I created foo bar bean and it had a method called message, then I could actually use that whatever that message was in my results using that SPEL expression. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Basically,
So
it's just using SPEL on the bean itself to update the environment.
Right, but I'm saying, okay, so let's say I've got, let's say Josh, have published a jar, and it's going to start up on whatever port this Commons exec web server factory bean. So I've got the Commons web, that whole thing, CEWSFB,
Right.
CEWS. I've got that. It's pointing to my custom jar, and I want to.
You want to include that in your environment.
Yeah, like I don't want to.
Yeah, that's what you would do. That's what this example is right here. So
good question here. Can you use this with Spring Boot 2.7?
No.
Sorry.
So yeah, it's building on top of this support that Josh mentioned earlier, which is actually, this is built on top of the latest and greatest boot. So I have no idea if it works even against like the 3.1 generation. It's I mean, it very well could, but you know, this is a new project, so I'm not really aiming for extreme backward compatibility at this point. So dynamic property. So if you wanted to include, you know, whatever your other jar is, this is your Spring Boot application, then you would just say whatever you want the property to be, and then you'd say, here's my SPEL expression, and it can access the port again because factory bean.get object is returning a Commons exec web server factory, which has a port property on it.
Okay.
So the thing that I'm pointing out is dynamic property is not tied to Commons exec web server factory bean. We happen to only use examples of that. Like that's the only example that we provide because that's really what it's intended for. But dynamic property could work on Josh's message service and update the environment based upon an arbitrary property, that Josh's message service returns.
So you're using dynamic properties establishing a property in my current Spring Boot app.
Yes.
Based on the exported value after resolving it via SPEL.
Yes. This is how you would be then in your current application. You could say messages.url is the location of the app that got started up, and then it can communicate with it, just like you would like if you weren't using this. You probably have messages URL already, so that way you could point to your development or your production or pre-production URLs. This is just another way of setting that same property that you're probably already using.
And if I already have messages.url set to some static value, but then I define this Java bean with that dynamic property on it, will that override whatever I've hard-coded for default testing?
That's a good question. I don't know because I haven't defined that. That's a good question. We should create a ticket for that to double check that is the case. It should do that, but
because
there's no releases yet, so so this is very new. So it should do that, but I don't know if it does. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not certain.
Well, you want to can you write it down or something? Put it somewhere. Whatever.
Yeah, we can write it down.
Let's see. I can put a sticky, and then I'll send you the sticky after the show. Test that the dynamic property overrides hard-coded application.yaml property values. Okay, good. I did the thing. That's fun. See the power of open source, and by that I mean asking Rob to fix things for me, because all my stuff.
There we go, Josh. You see my screen?
So good, so easy.
It's so hard to type though because my My
Your browser
screen is yeah. It's so laggy because of the live stream. All right, there we go. So now it's recorded. It's recorded.
for posterity. I love this. Good stuff. Okay. I don't know. It seems pretty simple. So we mentioned the Spring authorization server, but Spring and Spring Cloud in particular, right, is rife with examples of places where I have dependencies where if I'm being honest, they probably don't even change that often. Like it's not like it's not like I'm adding a lot to my Spring authorization server. Likewise, I'm not going to be adding a lot to the Spring Cloud config server, to the Eureka Netflix service registry, to the Hystrix dashboard, although I'm not even sure if we support that anymore. There's all these like examples of things where I'm standing up a satellite dependency as a service, but they're just Spring Boot jars. And then also other microservices, which do change a lot. Like I have order service and fulfillment service, and this is particularly useful. Short circuit the round trip time with the containers. I can start making changes and refresh over here.
Yeah. So at the risk of things not working, should we try it?
Yeah, but are we gonna do it from zero? Like start start.spring.io and then like.
Oh, do you want to? Well, I guess
we can walk me through it.
We could do that, but I was thinking maybe we just use this example and on another, because I'm not sure that we have that much time today. But maybe do you want to try it? We could actually just try it.
Okay.
We could try it. Let's just try it. Who cares if it doesn't work? Oh well.
It's not even released yet. Yeah. So
yeah. Okay. All right. So let's give it a try. All right. Do you want me to navigate you to try it, or do you want me to try it?
I want you to navigate me because I've got 0 dependencies here. I've got like nothing. So let's do it from 0 to production. Okay. So I'm gonna go start that scenario. Gradle. By the way, does this work with Java 21 yet? Like, is that a thing?
It could work with Java 21, but I don't know.
Okay. Beautiful. So this is a client. No, this is
you're using Maven?
Just to test everything. I'm your integration test bud.
Woo! Integration testing. All right.
So this is gonna be the thing that consumes. What is it? Oh, this is hard to name. Like, let's just call this consumer. All right. So this is the thing that's gonna pull in the dependency from test jar.
So what are we building? Let's define what we're building first. What are we doing?
Web app that has a hello world endpoint.
Okay.
And then we'll build a consumer that then calls that endpoint, and I need test jars to stand it up.
Create maybe do web app and messages. I always use messages as my sample.
Okay.
Because messages is the thing that it'll call.
It is?
Yeah, it'll call messages to get a message. That's like the REST API it'll call. Okay. So, and then the web app can, yeah, sure.
Okay. And then it's just gonna be a web app. Let's not bother with anything else. I just want to see basic hello, end-to-end work. Okay.
Sure.
So,
okay, go ahead.
But this is also going to require snapshots. So in order to make that work, I'm going to use 3 dots.
You can use GA. Just use GA.
Well, but I need the repositories, right?
Ah, you're a genius. Yeah, it does. It will need. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's fine. That's good.
So, because I don't want to have to type out. It's easier to Levenstein distance. I can just change the number versus adding all the repositories, especially in Maven. It's a real hemorrhoid-inducing experience.
Sure.
UAL, Gradle. Okay, so this is the thing that we're going to want to consume from another service. Just give me a second. And this doesn't need to be aware of test jars, right? This is just a regular.
Correct. Yeah, it's just a regular app. Just create it can still be the snapshot. You don't have to change it.
I know, but I'm downloading all this extra stuff. There we go. I've only got fiber. It's not fast enough to.
You've never downloaded the snapshot jars, I'm sure, Josh.
Yeah. that Aerosmith song, "Living on the Edge," that was all about my life as a developer advocate working against snapshot jars. Okay, so rest. Oh, please, I beg of you. Okay, add controller. Greetings. Okay, so start that up. Let's just see if that does the thing. Fantastic. Okay, so now we know that's a real thing. I need to build the jar, I guess. So
Yep.
I go here, Maven W, skip test because I don't have any tests. Clean package. It doesn't really need to be installed since that doesn't add. We can't use that anyway. If I had published it in Maven Central, that'd be something, but it's not what I did. So target greetings 001 snapshot. Okay, great. So that's what we're going to use in a second. But now I go back to Chrome, and this is going to be the greetings client. Is that fair? Or the thing that uses
Sure. Yeah. Client? Yeah. It's whatever it calls it.
And then same trick, right? I'm just gonna. Okay. And I've stopped this one. Let's go over here. Greetings client. Mm-hmm. And this is the one where I need to like pull in test jars and all that. So I'm using GA, but by having the snapshots here, like everything is good. Good. Okay. So now this is that trick on the Maven dependency you were saying. Go to here, I guess.
Yeah. So I realize there's not a best thing to copy here, but start with because it doesn't have the version in it, and you don't need the classifier since we're not downloading via Maven. So go ahead and scroll down, like just look for artifact ID, Control F for artifact ID, because there we go. Copy that. We'll have to modify it a little bit, but that's okay.
Okay. And then
remove that, and then put a version 0.0.1 -snapshot. This is the first time I've ever consumed it from a Maven repository, so we'll see how happy it is about that.
So unclean. Wait, did I?
Hold on.
I did something wrong, friend.
Or no, it could just be. I'm pretty sure it's out there. Let's see. Let me just double check that, because again, this is. Why is this not working?
Let's see. Experimental. Did I put the wrong? Is it build snapshot instead of just snapshot?
No, it's snapshot. Hold on, I'm just checking here. Lib snapshot.
In the meantime, I have all these little. IntelliJ has gotten better because it's now. You just have these little icons around the Chrome here, but I don't know what all of them do. I know this is Maven, but it used to be there's a lot of stuff in your face I didn't understand. Now there's like a bunch of stuff that's hidden and I don't understand it. I'm not sure which is better. Maybe I should try manually installing it on command line.
That might. Let's see. Yeah, I wonder if. Hold on one second. Let me see.
Sure.
Local. It looks like there might be a problem with our deployment to the snapshot repo for some reason. So you might need to go ahead, just for today, go ahead and clone the project and do a Maven install. In the meantime, I'll create a ticket to verify, clone the repository, and then just do a Maven or do a Gradle install on that.
Okay. W install?
No, it's not install. Look up the task. It's very long.
Publish to Maven local.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay, downloading it. Downloading all the world. Using the Spring Java format plugin. That's awesome. I love that thing so much. that plugin gave me the confidence to write a book, and it probably saved me like a year.
Oh,
Okay,
that's good. Publish to Maven local.
Publish all publications to local
I think you
repository.
just do. I think if you just do publish to Maven local.
Oh, just publish to Maven local by itself.
Yeah.
Oh, this one. Okay.
Yep. I think that one.
This should be like standard. I can't believe this is not like a default thing in all Gradle projects. Scandalous. Okay, good. So.
All right. So now you should have it. Hopefully.
Oh, experimental.
Boot experimental. I might have done the wrong order on that. There we go.
Okay. Oh, did I actually have boot in the dependency here? I did. Okay, yeah. Test jars. There it is. So it looks like it's. Well, we got a palm, but no jar.
Interesting. Well, maybe that's part of the problem. Maybe it's not. It's not actually not working.
How do we install it, or how do we build it? Maybe if I build it and then publish it, like.
Well, that I think. Hold on. Stop real quick.
Just gotta see if this works. Desperate.
You know what I wonder? I wonder if it's not recursive. Go into Spring Boot Testjars subfolder and then run that same command.
Okay. It's doing something. It's very busy. How do I tell it to not run the test?
I don't know. You said build. You should just say assemble. Assemble of create stars. Go do your publish to stop right there. Colon.
Okay.
Yep. Before publish to Maven local, go colon, and then Spring Boot Testjars.
Like so.
And then colon, and then publish to Maven local. That way it does that project. I wonder if it was publishing the root project.
Interesting. Org Spring framework test. Nope. Sorry. Boot and then experimental.
Yep.
Experimental. Okay.
It's still not there. Can you do a tree on Spring Boot Testjars build?
Oh, the directory? Yeah.
Yeah. Spring Boot Testjars build. Yeah, build. Let's see. Keep going up.
Libs. There's a jar.
So there's a jar. Why is it not getting published? There's probably something wonky going on with the Gradle build there, which is maybe why it's not actually deploying that.
Okay, easy fix. But in the meantime, like maybe I can just force it to install. Because I got a valid jar, right? That's a real jar. So how do I deploy a local jar? Maven deploy jar to Maven to Maven local. This one. Okay. And I'm going to deploy this file, and it's called. We're having fun here. This is org spring framework dot boot dot experimental. No, experimental.
No, boot experimental.
Son of a gun. Okay. Well, your packages are the other way around, though.
Oh, are they? Haha. That's funny.
See? Org Spring Framework Experimental Boot.
Ah, you're right.
Boot Experimental.
That's yet another issue. You've got an eagle eye, my friend.
Something. Most people think it's a lazy eye. But I'll take it. Okay, so artifact ID is Spring Boot Testjars. This part is easy. I got this. Don't worry about it. I got that part. And then the version is 001 snapshot. Like that.
Yep.
Okay, and then the packaging is a jar. The goodest jar. And then the path to file. Right, I want to get rid of that. I hope this installs my local thing, you know. If it doesn't work, I'm just gonna have to. We'll just do the normal thing and get ChatGPT to fix it for me. So, oh, wait, it's gonna fail. Build.
So this is very interesting, Josh.
Yes.
Huh. It says that it's deploying to lib snapshot local, but then it doesn't appear there.
I don't trust anything with although my brain doesn't grok the Gradle Maven integration story yet, and so I don't trust anything.
Yeah. All right.
Okay, so deploy file. Okay, that's the wrong one. ChatGPT, help me. Wait, I just want to like install it. Install to local. There we go. Son of a gun. Okay, that's what I was looking for right here. So it's called install file. That feels better. That does feel better. Install file instead of deploy file. Okay. Please work. Yes. Okay, so Mr. Guy, repository, org, Spring Framework, experimental, boot, Spring Boot Testjars, 001 snapshot. Let's go. Spring Boot Testjars, 001 snapshot jar. We think that's right?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, now.
Does it have the right POM though? Is it going to bring in Commons exec?
I don't know. I just work here. Let me see. Oh, nope, it does not. Just okay. Wait, maybe I can specify the POM file.
POM file location, maybe.
Oh, you can install the following command. Look at that. They gave you the wrong one, and then they're like, haha, you feel like you got slighted, do you? Well, do this instead. It's kind of a journey they took us on there.
It always is a journey, that's for sure.
Yeah. Okay, so install file, and then the POM file, and which makes all this other, it's redundant. I don't need to specify the packaging in the group ID if I have the POM file. Okay, so we're going to just rmrf, repository, org, Spring Framework, experimental, boot. Okay, goodbye. And then we do this one, maven w install dash file, POM file equals, what is the POM file? We don't have the POM file. Oh man, there's no POM file. It's Gradle. How do I get a POM file? Chicken and egg.
Can you check to see if it generated one? Because it should have generated one when it did the.
Here? Okay, tree.
Yeah.
Hey. Okay.
Make sure it looks good.
Certainly doesn't. There's no such thing as good as POM. But it does seem to have Commons exec.
Yeah, no, that looks right.
Okay. I feel like Jay Leno. So POM equals this thing. Can I do that? No. It's POM equals find.iname POM. Okay, echo POM. Okay, and then we want to do the jar, which is jar equals, come on, find iname jar. No. Oh, son of a gun. Echo jar. No. What is it called? It's called .jar. That feels right. So now I do maven install dash file d POM file equals POM d, and then what was the thing? It's called file. Figures it would be. These work. Cool. Okay, so now .m2 repository org Spring Framework experimental boot 0 snapshot. Okay, and now I'm scared. You want to check the POM, or should we just like believe? Everybody clap.
Let's just believe.
Yeah. Everybody clap, okay? Everybody clap. This is like Peter Pan. Yeah. Hey, it looks like it's got
It looks like a POM.
Fully qualified Commons exec. Spring Boot dependencies 3.22. Neat.
All right.
Oh, okay. The gall to like if it doesn't work, but also it was published with a richer model, Gradle metadata, which should be used instead. Do not delete the file. Okay, moving on. Okay, so whoa. Okay, now we go back to our regularly scheduled program. Is that right? So this thing should be the happier for it. Let me re-import. Okay, and if I command click on that, it still takes me to this old thing. How do I tell it not to do that? Maven package up. I mean, IntelliJ thinks it's that, but it's not that, right? It's what if I got rid of it? Is that like force IntelliJ to invalidate the cache?
I have no idea.
And then re-edit. It's probably fine because it's not like I need the code. There's no types I'm depending on really, except for
Well, you will need to because you will add it to your test.
Right.
And that's a test dependency, by the way.
Wait.
The testjars is a test dependency.
Thank you, sir. Okay, there you go. That might be the distinguishing disambiguator that we can use. Please click on that. No. Okay. Why do I? IntelliJ, come on.
Well, we did ask what could go wrong.
Wait, okay, I mean, let's just try. Like, it's the dynamic properties.
Yeah. Enable. It's enabled dynamic. Yeah, there you go.
So clearly, okay. I mean, you know, this part.
I think it's just enable dynamic property.
Okay. Let me force IntelliJ to like go away for a second. Greetings is good. We don't actually need that. We want the greetings client now. Go here, armrf target, armrf.idea. All these little droppings just confuse things. Idea pom XML. Because Maven, as IntelliJ, it doesn't realize I'm like, DDIFing dependencies in the class path here, so it's not even thinking to recheck that stuff. Because why would it? It'd be negligent if it did. Okay. Also, that's a test type, not a production.
Yeah, it's got to be. Yeah, it's got to be. That might be why you're having trouble.
Aha!
You need to create a.
It worked.
There we go.
Sweet nectar. Okay, we're in business. Okay, so now what? So
well, first delete this and do your test greetings client application file.
Okay, and then here, public okay. Oh, 20-year habits. You know what else is a 20-year habit for me, or more than now? It's actually 27-year habit now. Is Java, and yesterday, Rob, I was at the JCP 25th birthday party, which kind of blows my mind, right? So
that is pretty crazy.
From greetings, and I saw James Gosling was there. He's the guy who created it. Let's see.
So just as a reminder, Josh, top of the hour, I'm gonna have to head out.
Okay. So what am I doing? Is this kind of on the right track? I'm just guessing.
Yeah. So you from there, and then you need to also include the test one with test greetings client application.
Okay. And then
at the top of the test greeting, you'll need a test configuration.
Test configuration.
So then enable, and then you can enable the dynamic properties.
Okay, like that.
Okay, and yep, and then you can create a bean.
Okay. So let me first write this code to consume that, right? So
Okay, yeah, let's do
very
that.
quick here. REST client, REST RC, and string. So actually, I just return REST client.builder.build, and I want the client, the new JDK request factory, and then we want a thing that will inject. Okay. REST client RC, and I'll say get dot URL, and the question then of course is what URL. So we say value URL, or message greetings dot URL 8081. Actually, failure is not an option. We're not going to.
Yes. I like that.
Go big or go home, right? Am I right?
Yeah.
Let's see, URL. Okay, and then get exchange something. No, I want to retrieve. That's the one. Dot body is going to be a new hash map, so it's a new parameterized parameterized type reference of map of string. I wish that worked, honestly. It's the one thing I miss from .NET. Lowercase string. It just feels more natural. Okay. Okay. It's a bit tortured. Okay, I'm not gonna lie to you and say it isn't, but does that make sense?
It'll prove our point. Yeah.
Okay. And
Yep.
okay, so now go back. We got this property. Test it. Go.
Yep. So now we need a bean. We need static commons exec web server factory bean. Okay.
And it's static.
Static is a good idea because it makes sure the class isn't instantiated. Also, it helps with ordering. So commons exec web factory bean.builder, and then you'll need default Spring Boot application main. Or no, you don't actually need that. Sorry, because you're using an actual one. So class path, and it's a lambda. Yep, and then entries or files maybe files. Files, yep. Files, and then the file to your location, wherever that. Wherever that jar is published, you built that jar at.
That one?
Yep.
Okay.
And then you'll need to add a semicolon probably. I can't. Your formatting is like screwing with my eyes a little bit.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm trying to like make it better, but it gets.
No, it's okay. Semicolon. Yeah, there you go. And then at the top where the bean is, you need to add a dynamic property.
Okay.
And then name. Nope, that one's gonna have to be. That's gonna have to be localhost. String localhost.
Wait. Okay. So just localhost.
So there's a couple. You need to do two things. Start with just name. Delete everything. Nope.
Sorry.
Delete everything. It's not a string. Name equals, and then what was the name of your property? Messages.uri or URL?
Yeah. Greetings.url. Yeah.
Yeah. Use that.
Equals.
And then no equals. There's a separate one. Value.
Okay.
And then single quote localhost HTTP : localhost 8080. Nope, HTTP. And no 8080. I would light on that. And then quote, and then plus port.
Okay, that's the SPEL business.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Because it's a string plus the property on there, which is port.
Fingers crossed that this class path resolves, though to be honest with you, I would just prefer copy reference. What does that give me? No, that's not it. Take me to this jar, please.
I mean, it auto-completed, so it seems like it's probably there.
Yeah. Okay, we'll try it. Who knows? Stranger
try
things
it.
have happened. Local compilation and all that. Okay, so I'm going to run this test jar thing.
Yep.
Here, not the main method, the test one. Oh, because I didn't add the test container support?
Ah, that's interesting that it's not. Yeah, so try adding, this might be a bit of a problem. I don't know why it's needing that though, because it should have brought it in transitively. Go ahead and add it to your class path though, the test class path, add the test container support, because it builds on top of that. It's kind of weird because there's actually an issue in the Testjars project that we're depending on that, but that's Boot's dynamic property stuff is built entirely within the Testjars.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that looks good.
This should be redundant. Reload. Restart. Command line. Commons exec.
So for some reason it didn't find a Commons exec. Yeah, I think that jar, that POM file is not like getting picked up.
Yeah.
I think that's really what's happening. Just
Yeah.
add the Commons exec here for now. You
Okay.
could copy it from that other POM. I think that's the only other dependency.
Okay.
Make it a test scope just because I'm crazy.
Crazy like a fox.
Crazy like a fox.
Got 4 minutes. Can we do this?
I don't know.
Probably not. Wait. Null? Who says null? Nobody asked you for null. Unable to read property port through getter method. Oh, did I not call a thing that was I supposed to call a thing? I feel like there's more. No, this is too easy. There's like more in that example of ours.
No, I think that's right.
Well, for the project lead, huh? Oh wait.
What is? So can you go back?
Yeah. Code
to the error message. What's the error message say again?
Unable to access property port through getter method. And I feel like that's not fair.
Can you? That is really
bizarre.
Yeah. Can you? Is there any more to that? Can you scroll down and it says null? Why is it null?
Property or it's AST SPEL. Problem occurred whilst attempting. Wow, that's fancy. Somebody's old English. Accessing the property, unable to access property port through the getter method. I assume that means the resulting factory object.
Yeah.
Commons exec web server. Does Commons exec web server no longer have get port?
Well, it's not it's the object that it's returning that gives that.
Yeah, the Commons exec web server, right? Not the factory.
Yeah.
Here. Hey, get over here. Get over. Yeah, there you go. Okay, so close. Could not find main class jar launcher.
Oh, that's why. You know what? I think there might be with the newer boot version. I think there's a new. Which version of boot are you using?
3.22.
Can you go to that jar? Go to your jar that you compiled.
The dependency.
Yeah, the one that you compiled on the command line. The greetings, the service that we're calling. Go to that jar. I want to do unzip-l, like list. I want to list all the class files in there. Because I know at one point they changed the version. Let's see. And can you grep for Oh, you know what? Grep for main, maybe. Capital M.
Yeah.
Hold on 1 second. What? Can you extract that out and see what the can you extract it out and then see what the manifest says for the main method?
Yeah. Jar launcher, and then start class.
Copy main class. No, main
Main?
class.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the main class because that's actually what gets ran. That's what Java runs as the main method.
Right.
Is that the same thing that it's trying to do? Because
No.
they changed it semi recently.
Loader
Okay.
launch. Aha.
Okay, so in that command line thing, change it. Go to your where you start the factory, where you define that bean.
In the test here, yeah.
Yeah, and you can actually override it. Just say after builder, say .main, and then put it in quotes. It won't be available on your class path.
Fantastic. Okay, making progress. Process exited. Unable to access port. Wait a minute, hold on. I might have screwed this up by inadvertently going. Okay, hold on.
It'll probably be outside of the stack trace. What happened? Scroll up.
Problem. Well,
My guess is when it tried to. Okay. Class not found. Is that the same one that we just tried to do, or is that a different? I don't know if that aligns.
yeah, it does now. Yeah.
It does align now.
Yeah.
So maybe you're. Can you copy the absolute path to that jar and put it in there?
I was thinking that too. Right. Okay.
You're a genius.
Well.
We did YOLO earlier.
Yeah.
And I'm just about needing to go.
I know, my friend. Okay, let's see. Greetings.
That's right.
See, PW. What am I doing? It's called what? It's called greetings, right? Surely. This one.
Yep.
Okay, and I put that in here. Yeah. Oh, so close. That was way better than last time, though. 404 not found. Awesome. So wait, what is this thing?
Oh, it's because didn't you have a greeting URL? It wasn't just it wasn't at the root. I think your client mapping. Look at your mapping on the greeting application.
The greeting application.
You compiled the greeting application, and I think you might have said get mapping of non-root. I think it was greetings.
Yeah. Okay.
So I think you need to do the URL plus greetings.
Oh, right. Sweet nectar. Easy. Look at that. That is dope.
And it worked. Of course it worked.
First
It's
try.
a demo. It was totally easy too.
just cut out that the middle 35 minutes, and we'll keep the first and the last.
Yeah.
No, that's great, man. The potential obviously is huge, and even with the slight hiccup we had a little bit just now, it was dope.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that we got to figure out is why it says it's deploying and it's not actually deploying. So,
well,
we'll look into that.
Yeah, everybody, I hope you got something out of it. Change the group ID. Oh, look at that! All these cool people like helping me debug. That's really great.
That's awesome.
I appreciate you all. Thanks, Umbu. Okay, Rob. Thanks, man. I really appreciate you. I know you were gonna run, but because you've got like
I'm further east than you, so
yeah, exactly.
life is a little further along. I'm in the future.
I've always said that.
Yeah, I'm in the future.
Appreciate you, man. Thanks, everybody. Have a great weekend. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.